Forget the red carpets and the Oscar speeches. In the 1970s, the real cinematic action was happening in the grindhouses, sticky-floored theaters showing movies too raw, too violent, and too sleazy for polite society. This was the decade of the exploitation film, where low budgets met high shock value, and filmmakers broke every taboo just to get a reaction. From banned video nasties to gritty vigilante justice, these movies were designed to leave a mark. The best part? Most of these legendary cult classics have survived the censors and are now streaming for free. If you've got the stomach for it, here are 10 of the most shocking 70s exploitation films you can watch right now without spending a dime. 1. I Spit on Your Grave, 1978. This film is the definitive entry in the rape and revenge subgenre. Originally titled Day of the Woman, it follows Jennifer Hills, a writer who retreats to a quiet riverside cottage to work on her novel. Her peace is shattered when she is targeted and brutally assaulted by a group of local men. The film is notorious for its middle act, a grueling, near unwatchable sequence of violence, and its final act, where Jennifer systematically and creatively hunts down her attackers. Banned in multiple countries for decades, its long, static takes give it a documentary-like realism that still feels like an assault on the senses today. The film's director, Myers Archie, utilized a lack of musical score during the most intense scenes to heighten the discomfort, forcing the audience to sit in the silence of the woods. In the decades since its release, it has transitioned from a reviled, vile bag of garbage to a discussed piece of feminist reclamation cinema. You can find this on Tubi or Pluto TV. 1. The Last House on the Left, 1972. Before he became a household name with Nightmare on Elm Street, Wes Craven directed this raw, grainy descent into depravity. Loosely based on a 13th century Swedish ballad, the story follows two teenage girls who head to the city for a concert, only to be kidnapped by a gang of psychopathic convicts led by the terrifying Krug. The film's marketing famously warned, to avoid fainting, keep repeating, "It's only a movie." It blurred the lines between the monsters and the civilized parents who eventually stooped to the killer's level for vengeance. Craven used 16mm film stock to give it an almost newsreel-like quality, making the violence feel dangerously real to 1970s audiences who were already reeling from the real-world horrors of the Vietnam War. It remains a landmark of low-budget horror and is currently streaming on Tubi. 3. Pink Flamingos. John Waters' exercise in bad taste isn't about violence, it's about being as repulsive as humanly possible. Starring the legendary drag queen Divine as Babs Johnson, the plot follows two rival families competing for the title of the filthiest people alive. From singing body parts to the infamous unsimulated final scene involving a poodle, the film is a masterpiece of the grotesque. It was designed to offend everyone and succeeded, becoming a permanent fixture of the midnight movie circuit. Waters used his native Baltimore as a backdrop, creating a trash aesthetic that would influence fashion, art, and indie film for decades to come. It was a movie made for outsiders by outsiders, celebrating the filth that mainstream society tried to ignore. It frequently pops up on archive.org and age-restricted YouTube channels. 4. Ilsa, She-Wolf of the SS, 1975. This film sits at the center of the controversial Nazi-exploitation subgenre. Diane Thorne stars as Ilsa, a sadistic commandant of a medical experiment camp during World War II. Her goal is to prove that women have a higher tolerance for pain than men, leading to a series of graphic and over-the-top torture sequences. It is high camp and deeply sleazy, utilizing historical atrocities as a backdrop for cheap thrills. While many find its subject matter irredeemable, the film's influence on the women in prison genre cannot be ignored. Thorne's towering presence and commanding performance turned Ilsa into a dark cult icon, leading to several sequels where she played similar roles in different historical settings. You can usually find it in the cult or nightmare fuel categories on Tubi. Torso, 1973. While America was focused on grit, Italy was perfecting the giallo, a stylish, colorful take on the slasher film. Torso follows a group of beautiful university students who flee a string of campus murders to stay at a remote villa in the countryside. Unfortunately, the masked, black-gloved killer has followed them. Directed by Sergio Martino, the film is famous for its creative cinematography and a final 20-minute of near-silent, nail-biting suspense as the last girl hides while the killer disposes of her friends. It's a bridge between the mystery of the 60s and the slasher boom of the 80s, balancing high-fashion aesthetics with brutal hacksaw violence. It's available on Pluto TV. 6. The Driller Killer, 1979. Abel Ferrara's directorial debut is a grimy time capsule of 1970s New York City. Ferrara himself stars as Reno, an artist struggling to keep his sanity while a punk rock band rehearses next door around the clock. The stress, combined with the urban decay surrounding him, eventually causes him to snap. He takes a portable power pack for his electric drill into the streets to murder the city's homeless population. This film was a major target during the video nasty panic in the UK, where the graphic cover art alone was enough to cause a moral outcry and lead to it being banned for years. Underneath the gore, however, is a fascinating look at the isolation of the big city and the thin line between artistic passion and madness. Because it is in the public domain, you can watch it for free on YouTube or Tubi. 7. Thriller, A Cruel Picture, 1973. This Swedish revenge epic was a primary inspiration for Quentin Tarantino's Kill Bill. It stars Christina Lindberg as Frigga, a young woman who is rendered mute by a childhood trauma and later forced into a life of sex work. She uses her money to buy a car and a sawed-off shotgun while training herself in combat and marksmanship to take down everyone who wronged her. The film is cold, stylish, and incredibly violent, often using slow motion to emphasize the impact of the revenge. Lindbergh's eye-patched look became one of the most iconic images in exploitation history, representing a silent, deadly fury that resonated globally. It is a staple on the Cult Cinema Classics YouTube channel and Tubi. 8. Coffy, 1973. Pam Grier became the queen of blaxploitation with this 1973 hit. She plays Coffy, a nurse who turns vigilante after her younger sister is hospitalized by bad drugs. She goes undercover as a high-class sex worker to move up the criminal ladder, targeting the pushers, the mob bosses, and the corrupt politicians who protect them. Unlike many films on this list, Coffy has a strong emotional core and a charismatic lead who hides razor blades in her hair to get the job done. It was a massive hit that proved female-led action movies could dominate the box office, all while featuring a legendary funky soundtrack by Roy Ayers. It's a high-energy ride that you can watch on Freevee or Pluto TV. 9. Sweet Sugar, 1972. A classic of the women in prison genre, Sweet Sugar moves the action to a tropical labor camp on a sugarcane plantation. Sugar is a streetwise woman who is framed and sent to a camp where a mad doctor is performing medical experiments on the inmates. The film is a blend of jungle adventure and prison break tropes, featuring plenty of stunts and a very explosive finale involving the destruction of the plantation. It's less nihilistic than the rape and revenge films, leaning more into the popcorn side of exploitation, with a fast pace and a focus on action. It represents the lighter, drive-in side of the 70s, and is frequently available on YouTube and Tubi. 10. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, 1974. Tobe Hooper's masterpiece is often called the greatest exploitation film ever made. 5 friends traveling through rural Texas run out of gas and encounter a family of cannibalistic killers. Despite its reputation for being a bloodbath, the film actually shows very little gore. Its power comes from the sweltering atmosphere, the terrifying sound design, and the raw documentary-style filmmaking. It felt real to audiences in 1974, leading many to believe it was a true story of American madness. It remains one of the most effective horror films of all time, utilizing the gritty Grindhouse look to create a sense of inescapable dread. It is always available on Tubi and Pluto TV. Exploitation films aren't for everyone. They're loud, messy, and often offensive. But they're also a time capsule of a decade where filmmakers were truly free to experiment, for better or worse. They paved the way for modern directors like Tarantino, Rodriguez, and Eli Roth. Most of these films were meant to be seen once in a dark theater and then forgotten. Instead, they've become legends of independent cinema. By stripping away the subheadings and categories, we can see these films for what they truly are: a continuous, unrelenting stream of 1970s counterculture that refused to play by the rules. Whether it's the stylish violence of an Italian giallo or the urban rot of a New York slasher, these movies remain essential viewing for anyone interested in the history of the shock factor in film.